Okay, now in this example, we're going to do a chi-square test of independence working with this data. Let me see if maybe I can make this a little bit bigger. Working with this data here, and it's basically is gender related to iPad ownership, okay? So we've got males and females, and we've got whether you own an iPad or whether you don't. This should be old hat to you, but we'll just click on add-ins. We go to Megastat. We drag down to chi-square/crosstab. And again, since the table's already built for us, we'll do contingency table analysis. Let me clear this out and start all over again. And so for our table, we'll highlight everything here. Our column headers, our row headers, as well as the actual data. And then I'm going to go ahead and ask for percent of row, percent of column, and percent of total. And I'm going to ask for the contingency coefficient as well. Okay? And now I'm ready to run my test. And the first thing I look at is I got a small p-value here, less than 0.05. So I conclude that gender and iPad ownership are related to one another. Okay, gender and iPad ownership are related to one another. Okay, and of the 58 males in our sample, 34 own iPads. So 34 divided by 58 is 58.6%. Let me type that over. 58.6%. Okay? And of the 38 women in our sample, 14 of them own iPads. So 14 divided by 38 is 36.8%. So 36.8%. Okay? So when it gets right down to it, what we're interested in here is whether our observed proportions, 59% of men own iPads and 37% of women own iPads, are 59% and 37%, are they different enough for us to conclude that the proportion of men who own iPads is greater than the proportion of women who own iPads? Or is the difference between these two numbers small enough to conclude that the difference that we observe is simply attributable to random error, and indeed the proportion of men is the same as the proportion of women who own iPads? And by looking at our p-value here, we reject the null hypothesis. So we conclude that proportionally speaking, men are more likely than women to own iPads. And that's really confirmed by our contingency coefficient. Again, when I have a contingency coefficient in the 0.2 range, I tend to describe that as the two variables being moderately related. All right. So it's not like the difference is all that huge. I mean, 59% versus 37%. So it's not like 75% of men and 25% of women, where it's a factor of 3 to 1. But here you could say men are probably about 50% more likely than women to own iPads. So that's and again, from a marketing standpoint, very frequently we look at gender differences to decide whether one gender is more advantageous to us to target or to market to than another gender. And that's what this example here gives us. Thank you.